My Honda decided to die on me at the worst possible moment. There I was, 20 minutes before my biggest client meeting of the year, staring at steam pouring from under the hood like some cosmic joke. The universe really had it out for me that Tuesday morning. Damn it, I muttered, grabbing my phone with shaking fingers. Andrew Walker didn't tolerate lateness, especially not from struggling event planners like me. One more screw-up and I'd lose the contract that kept me from eating ramen for the 3rd month straight. The rideshare app flashed an obscene price, $43 for a 20-minute ride across mobile. My bank account laughed bitterly, but what choice did I have? Your driver will arrive in 8 minutes, the notification chimed. Great. Still cutting it close. When the sleek black sedan pulled up, I expected some chatty driver wanting to discuss the weather. Instead, the back door opened to reveal a woman who belonged in a magazine spread, not sharing economy transportation. She had that effortless elegance money could buy, blonde hair swept into a perfect chignon navy blazer that probably cost more than my rent. Her blue eyes glanced up from her phone, taking in my rumpled blouse and desperate energy. "Clara Rodriguez?" she asked, her voice carrying a refined southern accent. "That's me." I slid in, immediately conscious of my scuffed purse against her leather briefcase. "Thanks for sharing the ride. Phoebe Campbell." She offered a manicured hand, heading to the Symphony Hall. Of course she was. I was rushing to grovel for corporate event scraps while she probably owned season tickets to everything cultured in this city. The driver pulled into traffic, an awkward silence settled between us. I caught her stealing glances in the window's reflection, studying my face with curious intensity. Her fingers drummed against expensive Italian leather, a nervous habit that somehow made her seem more human. "You seem stressed," she observed quietly. "Big meeting, car trouble, Tuesday morning from hell." I attempted a laugh that came out more like a bark. "What kind of meeting?" I gestured vaguely. "Event planning, corporate stuff. Probably boring compared to whatever you do at the Symphony." "I conduct there." My eyebrows shot up. "A conductor?" That explained the poise, the way she held herself like someone accustomed to commanding attention. "That's incredible. I've always wondered what that feels like, having an entire orchestra respond to your movements." Something shifted in her expression. "It's like painting with sound. Every gesture creates something different." The driver navigated through Mobile's morning chaos, past the historic district where Phoebe probably lived, toward the business sector where I scraped by. The contrast wasn't lost on either of us. "This is me," I said as we approached the gleaming office tower. My stomach churned with familiar pre-meeting anxiety. "Good luck," Phoebe said, and I swear there was genuine warmth in those blue eyes. I grabbed my things, then impulsively turned back. "Maybe I'll catch one of your concerts sometime." Her smile was enigmatic. "Maybe you will." As the car pulled away, I realized I'd been holding my breath the entire ride. Something about Phoebe Campbell had knocked me completely off balance, and I couldn't shake the feeling that 20 minutes in a shared back seat had somehow changed everything. Andrew Walker's office felt like a corporate cathedral, all marble and intimidation. I smoothed my blouse for the 10th time, still feeling rumpled from the morning's chaos. The rideshare encounter with Phoebe lingered in my mind like an expensive perfume I couldn't quite identify. "Clara." Andrew's voice cut through my distraction. "You're 3 minutes late." "My apologies. Car trouble this morning." His gray eyes assessed me like I was a balance sheet coming up short. "The Morrison wedding. Walk me through the revised budget." I opened my portfolio, but my hands trembled slightly. Those blue eyes from the car kept flashing in my memory. The way Phoebe had said, "Maybe you will," when I mentioned her concerts. "Clara?" "Sorry." I fumbled with the papers. The venue costs increased 15%, but I managed to negotiate flower arrangements that'll save us $400. Andrew leaned back in his leather chair, fingers steepled. "This is exactly why small operations struggle. Lack of focus." Heat crept up my neck. "I'm completely focused, Mr. Walker. Are you?" "Because you seem distracted. Scattered." He closed my folder without looking at the remaining pages. "I need reliability, not excuses about car trouble and budget juggling." The contract renewal papers sat between us like a threat. 6 months of steady income balanced on his signature. "I understand your concerns," I managed. "But my track record speaks for itself." "Does it?" He stood, dismissing me. I'll be in touch. I left his office knowing I'd blown it. The elevator ride down felt like free fall. Meanwhile, across town at the Symphony Hall, Phoebe raised her baton for evening rehearsal. The musicians settled into position, but her mind kept drifting to green eyes and calloused hands. The event planner had possessed an intensity that intrigued her. Maestro? The concertmaster's voice broke through her reverie. Right. Mozart's Symphony No. 40. From the top. She lifted her arms, but the familiar flow eluded her. Usually conducting consumed her completely, every muscle memory trained toward perfection. Tonight felt different, disconnected. The violins entered, but her gesture lacked conviction. She caught several musicians exchanging glances. Stop. She lowered the baton. Let's take 5. In her private office backstage, Phoebe poured water with unsteady hands. Clara Rodriguez. The name rolled around her thoughts like a melody she couldn't quite capture. Something about her desperation mixed with dignity had been unexpectedly attractive. Her phone buzzed with reminders about tomorrow's board meeting, next week's gala planning, the endless obligations of her position. But all she could think about was 20 minutes in a car with a woman who worked twice as hard for half the recognition. By 9 p.m., both women found themselves at Grind Coffee on Dauphin Street, neither planning the encounter. Clara hunched over her laptop, surrounded by crumpled napkins and event proposals. 3 cups of coffee had failed to wash away Andrew Walker's dismissal. Phoebe entered quietly, still in her rehearsal clothes, sheet music tucked under one arm. She'd driven aimlessly after practice, unwilling to return to her empty mansion. Their eyes met across the crowded cafe. Clara felt her stomach flip the same way it had in the rideshare that morning. Phoebe approached her table. Car trouble resolved? Unfortunately, yes. Meeting didn't go as well. Clara gestured to her laptop screen. Professional disaster recovery in progress. Mind if I sit? Everywhere else is full. It was a polite lie. Several empty tables scattered around the cafe. Clara nodded, closing her laptop slightly. How was the symphony? Distracted conductor makes for distracted orchestra. Phoebe settled across from her, close enough that Clara caught hints of her subtle fragrance. Happens sometimes. What distracts a conductor? Phoebe's blue eyes held Clara's gaze. Unexpected encounters. Beautiful complications. The air between them shifted, charged with possibility. Clara felt her cheeks warm. I looked you up, Phoebe admitted quietly. Clara Rodriguez Events. Impressive portfolio. You Googled me? Clara couldn't hide her surprise. Professional curiosity. You create experiences that bring people joy. That's not so different from conducting. 20 minutes in a shared backseat had become something neither woman expected. As autumn wind rattled the cafe windows, they leaned closer across the small table, drawn together by forces neither quite understood yet. Tell me about your world, Phoebe said, leaning forward across the small table. Her coffee sat untouched while mine had gone cold an hour ago. My world? I laughed, gesturing around the cramped cafe. You're looking at it. Late nights, laptop dinners, praying clients pay on time. That's just the surface. What drives you? Something in her tone made me pause. Most people asked about event planning like it was party planning for rich people. I love that moment when everything clicks. When a corporate gathering becomes something real. People connecting instead of just networking. Like conducting, she said softly. Taking separate instruments and creating harmony. Exactly. The word came out breathier than intended. Though I bet your musicians don't argue about catering budgets. Her laugh was genuine, warm. You'd be surprised. Prima donnas exist in every field. We talked for 2 hours. She told me about growing up in Mobile's old money families, pressure to maintain appearances, the loneliness of always being on display. I shared my cramped studio apartment, my sister Catherine's constant worry about my finances, the stack of rejection letters from clients who wanted cheaper alternatives. Your apartment, Phoebe said as we finally prepared to leave. Is it far? Walking distance. 12 blocks of gentrification in progress. I hesitated. Want to see how the other half lives? She smiled. Lead the way. The contrast hit me harder walking beside her. My neighborhood screamed struggle. Corner stores with barred windows, apartment buildings with peeling paint. Phoebe never flinched, never made comments, just walked with quiet observation. This is it. I gestured to my building's cracked facade. Not exactly symphony hall material. It has character. Inside my studio, embarrassment flooded through me. Everything I owned fit in 400 square feet. My desk doubled as dining table, my couch pulled out into my bed, my entire wardrobe visible in one tiny closet. I know it's not much, I started. Clara. She stepped closer, close enough that I caught her perfume again. Stop apologizing for who you are. Something shifted between us. The polite distance we'd maintained at the cafe evaporated. Her blue eyes searched my face, and I saw my own nervous energy reflected back. This is crazy, I whispered. What is this, us? Your mobile high society, I'm barely keeping my lights on. Does that matter? Her hand brushed my cheek, tentative but sure. My breath caught. I dated women before, but never someone like Phoebe. Never someone whose touch made my entire body hum with anticipation. It should matter, I managed. But does it? Instead of answering, I leaned into her touch. Her thumb traced my jawline, and every rational thought scattered. The space between us disappeared as she stepped closer. Clara, she breathed. My name like music. I tilted my face up to hers, heart hammering against my ribs. Her lips were soft, hesitant at first, then more sure as I responded. The kiss deepened, 10 days of stolen glances and careful conversations exploding into something urgent and real. Her hands tangled in my hair while mine gripped her blazer, pulling her closer against me. She tasted like coffee and possibility, like everything I'd never dared want. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, she rested her forehead against mine. This complicates things, she whispered. Everything's already complicated. Your clients, my position, what people will say. Are you asking me to care what people think? Her smile was answer enough. Never. We kissed again, slower this time, savoring the discovery. My tiny apartment suddenly felt infinite, filled with potential I'd never imagined. Whatever came next, this moment belonged to us. When she finally left near midnight, I stood at my window watching her disappear into the darkness. My lips still tingled from her kisses, my heart still raced from her touch. 20 minutes in a rideshare had changed everything. Now there was no going back. We started meeting like conspirators planning a heist, coffee shops on the outskirts of town, afternoon walks through unfamiliar neighborhoods, anywhere we could talk without mobile's gossip network taking notice. Try this, Phoebe said, sliding a wine glass across the secluded restaurant table. We'd driven 30 minutes outside the city to avoid recognition. The liquid hit my tongue like velvet fire. Damn, that's incredible. 1998 Burgundy. I thought you might appreciate complexity. I nearly choked. How much does a bottle like this cost? Does it matter? Everything matters when you're counting pennies. Her expression softened. I'm not trying to flaunt anything, Clara. I want to share things I love with someone who gets it. That someone being me still felt surreal. 3 weeks of secret meetings, and I still couldn't quite believe Phoebe Campbell chose my company over her usual social circle. Tell me about conducting, I said, changing the subject before money created another awkward moment. Her face lit up. Tomorrow night, come to the hall after hours. I'll show you something special. The symphony hall after midnight felt like a cathedral of shadows and possibility. Phoebe led me through empty corridors, past portraits of stern-faced benefactors, to the conductor's podium that rose above the orchestra seats. Stand here, she whispered, positioning me behind the music stand. The empty hall stretched before us, rows of vacant chairs waiting for an audience that wouldn't come for hours. City lights filtered through tall windows, casting everything in silvery half-light. Raise your arms like this. She moved behind me, her body warm against my back as she guided my hands upward. Feel the space. Every gesture commands attention here. Her breath tickled my ear. My pulse quickened as her fingers covered mine, demonstrating the subtle movements that controlled tempo, volume, emotion. Now you understand, she murmured. This is what power feels like. I turned in her arms, suddenly overwhelmed by the intimacy of the moment. Her blue eyes reflected the dim lighting, pupils dilated with something that had nothing to do with conducting technique. Phoebe, I breathed. She kissed me then, urgent and hungry, her hands framing my face. I responded immediately, my body igniting at her touch. Weeks of careful distance dissolved as we pressed closer together. Her fingers fumbled with my blouse buttons while I worked at her blazer. The conductor's booth became our private world, elevated above everything ordinary. She pushed me gently against the music stand, her mouth trailing fire down my throat. "Here?" I gasped. "Here," she confirmed, her voice rough with desire. "Where I command everything except what you do to me." We moved together with desperate intensity, clothes discarded carelessly, her hands mapping every curve of my body while I learned the sounds she made when pleasure overtook composure. The empty hall witnessed our passion, our bodies moving in rhythm older than any symphony. Afterward, we lay tangled on her discarded coat, breathing hard in the dim light. Her fingertips traced lazy patterns on my shoulder. "This changes things," she said quietly. "Good changes or bad changes?" Terrifying changes. 3 days later, the terrifying part proved prophetic. Phoebe arrived at my apartment carrying shopping bags from stores I couldn't afford to window shop. "What's all this?" "A few things. Professional wardrobe pieces for your client meetings." I stared at the designer labels. "Phoebe, I can't accept these." "Why not?" "Because it feels like charity, like you're trying to fix me." Her face fell. "That's not what this is." "Then what is it? You think I can't dress appropriately, that I'm embarrassing to be seen with?" "Clara, no. I just thought—" "You thought wrong." I pushed the bags toward her. "I may not have money, but I have pride. Pride doesn't pay bills." The words hung between us like a slap. Her eyes widened, realizing what she'd said. "I didn't mean that." "Yes, you did. That's exactly what you meant." She reached for me, but I stepped back. "Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe we're too different." "Don't say that. Look around you, Phoebe. This is who I am. Cramped apartments, secondhand clothes, counting every dollar. If that's not enough..." "It is enough. You are enough." But the damage was done. As she gathered her expensive gifts and left my apartment, we both wondered if love could really bridge the gap between our worlds. 2 weeks of radio silence between Phoebe and me ended with Andrew Walker's ultimatum. He ambushed me at my morning coffee run, cornering me outside Grind Coffee like a predator who'd been watching and waiting. "Clara, we need to talk." His tone made my stomach drop. "About the Morrison project? About your personal associations?" He gestured toward his black SUV. "Get in." Inside his climate-controlled fortress, Andrew didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Phoebe Campbell, symphony conductor, old money mobile family." My blood ran cold. "I don't understand." "Sure you do. Been spotted around town together, cozy dinners, late-night visits." His smile was arctic. "Mobile's a small city, especially for people in our social circles. My personal life is none of your business." "Wrong. Everything about my contractors becomes my business when it affects my reputation." He pulled up photos on his phone, Phoebe and me walking into that out-of-town restaurant, us leaving the symphony hall late one night. Grainy, but unmistakable. "You had me followed?" "I protect my investments. Walker Industries maintains a traditional image, family values, conservative principles." His gray eyes bored into mine. "Lesbian event planners don't fit that brand." The word hung between us like a weapon. I wanted to deny it, but the photos made lies pointless. "Choose carefully, Clara. End whatever this is with Campbell, or I terminate every contract, not just Morrison wedding, everything." He dropped me back at the coffee shop, leaving me shaking with rage and fear. 6 months of guaranteed income vanished if I chose love over survival. Meanwhile, across town, Phoebe faced her own crossroads. The Mobile Arts Council position had opened unexpectedly, and her campaign manager Marcus Rodriguez pushed hard for her candidacy. "This is your moment, Phoebe. Arts funding, community engagement, real influence beyond the symphony. It means public scrutiny," she said, staring at the campaign paperwork. "Media attention, background checks. So? You're perfect. Established family, accomplished career, no scandals." No scandals yet. But running for public office meant every relationship, every decision, every private moment became fair game for political enemies and gossip columnists. "I need time to think." "Don't think too long. Filing deadline is next week." That evening, Phoebe called me for the first time since our fight. Hearing her voice made my chest ache with longing and dread. "Can we meet? I have news." We chose neutral territory, the Mobile Bay waterfront, where tourists and locals mixed anonymously. Phoebe looked stunning in the golden sunset light, but her expression carried weight I'd never seen before. "I'm running for City Arts Council," she said without preamble. "That's incredible. You'd be amazing. It complicates things between us." She stared at the water instead of meeting my eyes. "Campaign means visibility, questions about my personal life." I understood immediately. Questions like who you're sleeping with. "Clara." "It's okay. I get it." The lie came easily, even as my heart shattered. Politics requires sacrifices. "That's not what I'm saying. Isn't it?" Before she could answer, my phone rang. Catherine's name flashed on the screen, and something in her urgent tone made me answer immediately. "Clara, we need to talk about what happened 5 years ago. Someone's been asking questions." My blood turned to ice. "What kind of questions?" "About your bankruptcy, the failed catering business, that whole mess with your ex-partner stealing client deposits." I met Phoebe's confused gaze. She didn't know about the darkest period of my life, when poor judgment and misplaced trust had nearly destroyed me completely. When I'd lost everything and spent 2 years rebuilding from nothing. "Catherine, not now." "Clara, whoever's digging wants details. About why you left the catering industry. About the lawsuits. About..." I hung up, my hands trembling. Phoebe stepped closer, concern replacing her earlier distance. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Everything." I couldn't meet her eyes. "There are things about my past you don't know. Things that could hurt your campaign if they came out." "What things?" The questions I'd dreaded for 3 years suddenly seemed inevitable. Andrew Walker's threat, Phoebe's political ambitions, and my buried mistakes were converging like storm systems over the Gulf. "I can't do this anymore," I whispered. "Whatever this is between us, it's too complicated, too risky for both of us." "Clara, wait." But I was already walking away, leaving her silhouetted against the sunset like a beautiful injury I couldn't afford to keep reopening. Some dreams cost too much to pursue. Marcus Rivera, Phoebe's campaign manager, cornered her at Symphony Hall with a folder thick enough to choke on. His expression screamed damage control. "We have a problem. Opposition research dug up your girlfriend's history. She's not my girlfriend anymore." The words tasted bitter. "And what history?" "Clara Rodriguez Events went bankrupt 3 years ago. Partner embezzled client deposits, lawsuits, the whole mess." He spread photos and documents across her piano. "If you're serious about this council seat, you need distance. Now." Phoebe stared at newspaper clippings showing Clara leaving courthouse steps, looking devastated and defeated. The headlines were brutal. Local caterer faces fraud charges, and wedding dreams turned to nightmares. "She was cleared of wrongdoing," Phoebe said, reading closely. "Doesn't matter. Mud sticks. Conservative voters won't distinguish between victim and accomplice." Marcus leaned forward urgently. "Cut ties completely or prepare to lose. Your choice, but choose fast. Get out." "Phoebe." "Get out of my office." Alone, she studied every document, every photo, piecing together Clara's nightmare years. The brilliant, determined woman she'd fallen for had survived professional destruction and emerged stronger. It made her love Clara more, not less. Her phone buzzed with a text from Clara. "We need to talk, coming over." 20 minutes later, Clara stood in Phoebe's marble foyer looking like she was facing execution. Dark circles shadowed her green eyes, and her usual defiant energy had drained away. "You've seen the research," Clara said. "It wasn't a question. Marcus showed me everything." "Then you know I'm political poison. Dating me kills your campaign before it starts." Phoebe stepped closer. "Is that what you think matters to me?" "It should matter. This is your chance to make real change in Mobile's arts community." Clara's voice cracked slightly. "I won't be the reason you lose that opportunity." "What if I don't care about the opportunity?" "Then you're an idiot." Despite everything, Phoebe smiled. "Tell me what really happened, your version." Clara collapsed onto the leather sofa like a marionette with cut strings. "I trusted the wrong person. Sarah Martinez, my business partner. She seemed brilliant, connected, everything I wasn't. We built something beautiful together, Then she emptied our accounts and disappeared. The lawsuits? Clients who lost deposits for dream weddings that never happened. They sued everyone connected to the business, including me. 2 years of legal hell before investigators proved I was another victim. Clara's hands twisted in her lap. I lost my house, my car, my reputation, started over with nothing. Why didn't you tell me? Because women like you don't date women like me. Broke, damaged, carrying baggage that could ruin careers. Phoebe sat beside her, close enough to touch but not quite breaching the distance. Women like me? Successful, established, with reputations to protect. You think I'm that shallow? I think you're human. Everyone has limits. Want to know what my limits actually are? Phoebe turned to face her fully. Dishonesty, cruelty, giving up on things worth fighting for. Your campaign. Screw my campaign. The words hung between them like a challenge. Clara's eyes widened. You don't mean that. Don't I? Phoebe reached for Clara's hands, stilling their nervous movement. I've spent 38 years doing what's expected. Following the safe path. Playing by rules designed by people who never took real risks for love. This isn't just about love. It's about your future. You are my future. Before Clara could protest, Phoebe kissed her with desperate intensity, pouring weeks of separation and fear into the connection. Clara melted against her, hands fisting in her silk blouse, all pretense of noble sacrifice crumbling. They moved together toward the massive staircase, shedding clothes and inhibitions with equal urgency. In Phoebe's bedroom, with its panoramic view of Mobile Bay, they made love with the passion of people who'd nearly lost each other forever. Clara traced patterns on Phoebe's bare shoulder afterward, both women tangled in Egyptian cotton sheets that cost more than Clara's monthly rent. We can't keep hiding, Phoebe said quietly. Your campaign team will mutiny. Then I'll find a new team. One that understands love isn't a liability. Clara propped herself up on one elbow, studying Phoebe's determined expression. You're serious about this. Dead serious. I'm tired of living in shadows, pretending half my life doesn't exist. Phoebe's blue eyes blazed with conviction. If Mobile can't handle an honest candidate, maybe it doesn't deserve one. And if you lose, then we lose together. But we don't lose by hiding who we are. As dawn light crept across the water, both women faced the truth they'd been avoiding. Love required courage, and courage demanded consequences neither could predict or control. The press conference at Mobile Community Center looked like a feeding frenzy. Reporters packed folding chairs while cameras focused on the modest podium where our futures would be decided. My palms were sweating through the tissue paper I'd been clutching for 20 minutes. Ready for this? Phoebe squeezed my hand behind the curtain. No. But let's do it anyway. Marcus had quit that morning, taking half the campaign staff with him. The remaining volunteers looked shell-shocked but determined. One of them, a young woman named Janet, stepped up to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, candidate Phoebe Campbell. Phoebe walked into the lights with her conductor's poise, and I followed 2 steps behind, feeling like I was walking to my execution. The room buzzed with anticipation. Everyone knew this wasn't a typical campaign announcement. Good morning. I'm here to address questions about my personal life that have overshadowed discussion of Mobile's arts funding crisis. Her voice carried the same authority she used with orchestras. I'm a lesbian. I'm in love with Clara Rodriguez, an event planner who's built a successful business despite facing significant challenges. Hands shot up immediately. A reporter from the Mobile Press Register leaned forward aggressively. Miss Campbell, how do you expect conservative voters to support a candidate who flaunts alternative lifestyle choices? I expect them to judge me on qualifications and policy positions, not private relationships. Ms. Rodriguez, another voice called. Is it true you filed bankruptcy after business fraud allegations? My throat went dry. I was a victim of embezzlement by my former business partner. All charges against me were dropped after investigation proved I had no knowledge of her criminal activity. But your poor judgment in partnerships raises questions about decision-making abilities, the first reporter pressed. That's when Phoebe stepped slightly forward, her blue eyes flashing dangerously. Clara rebuilt her business from nothing through determination and integrity. That's exactly the kind of resilience Mobile needs in its leaders. Are you saying she'll influence policy decisions if you're elected? I'm saying she's taught me that real strength comes from overcoming adversity, not avoiding it. The questions kept coming, each one designed to expose weakness or create scandal. How long had we been together? Did we live together? What about family values? Were we making political statements or genuine commitments? Through it all, Phoebe never wavered. When one reporter suggested our relationship was a publicity stunt, she answered with quiet dignity. When another questioned my fitness to attend official functions, she detailed my professional accomplishments with pride. After 30 brutal minutes, we escaped to her campaign office to assess the damage. My phone had been buzzing non-stop, texts, calls, emails flooding in faster than I could process. Andrew Walker terminated my contracts, I said, reading the formal notice, effective immediately. I'm sorry. Don't be. We knew this was coming. But the real blow landed an hour later when 3 more clients called to cancel upcoming events. Word traveled fast in Mobile's business community. An association with scandal meant commercial death. I'm ruining your life, Phoebe said, watching me field another cancellation call. No, you're not. You're giving me a chance to find out what my life could actually become. That evening, something unexpected happened. Phoebe's phone rang with calls of support. Young professionals, artists, small business owners who'd been watching our press conference online. Janet coordinated rapidly, and within hours we had volunteers replacing the staff who'd abandoned ship. This is incredible, one of them said, showing us social media responses. You're trending on Twitter. #authentic leadership is everywhere. Not all responses were positive. Death threats mixed with love letters, hate mail arrived with donation checks, but the energy was undeniable. We'd struck something deeper than typical political calculation. The turning point came 3 days later at Phoebe's first post-announcement campaign event. The venue had been moved twice due to security concerns, finally ending up in a community center gymnasium that seated 200 people. Nearly 400 showed up. I worked the crowd with nervous energy, shaking hands and explaining my business background while Phoebe outlined her arts platform. The audience was diverse: young families, elderly couples, teenagers, professionals, people who'd never attended political rallies before. This is what authentic looks like, a woman told me by the refreshment table. My daughter's gay, and seeing you two gives her hope. During Phoebe's speech about making arts accessible to all economic classes, she gestured toward me in the crowd. Someone recently taught me that creativity doesn't require wealth, it requires courage. Our eyes met across the packed room, and I felt that familiar flutter in my stomach. After everything we'd risked and lost, the connection between us had only grown stronger. Walking out to her car afterward, Phoebe grabbed my hand boldly, no longer caring who observed our affection. How do you feel about possibly winning this thing? I asked. She stopped walking, pulled me closer, and kissed me thoroughly in the parking lot while campaign volunteers and reporters watched. With you beside me, she said against my lips, I feel like I can't lose. Campaign season in Mobile revealed unexpected alliances. 3 weeks after our press conference, Clara's phone rang with an offer she'd never imagined. Rodriguez Events? This is Margaret Henderson from Henderson Holdings. We need someone to plan our annual charity gala. Clara nearly dropped her phone. Henderson Holdings owned half of downtown Mobile, old money conservatives who'd built their fortune on tradition and appearances. I should mention, Clara said carefully, I'm involved with Phoebe Campbell's campaign. That might create conflicts for your organization. Ms. Rodriguez, we called because of your campaign involvement. My granddaughter's gay, and your courage inspired our family to finally support authenticity over appearances. Within a week, Clara's calendar filled with new clients, progressive businesses, young entrepreneurs, families who valued integrity over conformity. The financial boost couldn't have come at a better time, as Phoebe's campaign expenses depleted both their resources. Meanwhile, Phoebe transformed Mobile's political landscape through sheer determination. Her town halls drew standing room crowds, her arts proposals sparked genuine enthusiasm, and her partnership with Clara became a symbol of bridging economic divides. You've changed this city's conversation, Janet told Phoebe during a strategy meeting. People are talking about real issues instead of just party politics. The breakthrough moment came at a debate with her opponent, Councilman Robert Hayes, a career politician who'd held office for 20 years without accomplishing much beyond maintaining status quo. Ms. Campbell, Hayes said during the education segment, your lifestyle choices demonstrate unstable decision-making. How can voters trust someone who prioritizes personal desires over community values? Phoebe's response was immediate and devastating. Councilman Hayes, I've spent 5 months being transparent about my qualifications, my policies, and yes, my personal life. You've spent 5 months attacking me personally while offering zero solutions to Mobile's declining arts funding, struggling small businesses, or outdated infrastructure. The audience erupted in applause. Clara watched from the front row, pride swelling in her chest as Phoebe dismantled her opponent with facts and passion. Furthermore, Phoebe continued when the crowd settled, the woman you're indirectly attacking has built a thriving business, employs 12 people, and volunteers 40 hours monthly with local nonprofits. That's exactly the kind of community leadership Mobile needs. Hayes spent the remaining debate backpedaling, while Phoebe outlined detailed plans for arts education, small business support, and infrastructure improvements. By the final question, he looked deflated and desperate. Election night arrived with unseasonable warmth for November in Alabama. Campaign headquarters buzzed with nervous energy as early returns trickled in. Clara coordinated food while volunteers made last-minute calls to voters. First precincts reporting, Janet announced. Campbell 54%, Hayes 46%. Cheers erupted, but everyone knew early results could shift dramatically. Clara found Phoebe in the back office, staring at voter turnout numbers. Highest turnout in 20 years, Phoebe said quietly. Win or lose, we changed something fundamental. We're going to win. How can you be sure? Clara gestured toward the main room where volunteers from every demographic imaginable worked phones and tracked results. Look at them. Young, old, every color and background Mobile offers. This isn't just a campaign anymore. It's a movement. By 9 p.m., the results were decisive. Phoebe Campbell, 62%. Robert Hayes, 38%. The victory margin exceeded everyone's expectations except Clara's. Speech time, Janet called, and Phoebe walked into the main room to thunderous applause. 6 months ago, I was terrified to run for office because I thought honesty was political suicide, she began. Tonight, Mobile proved that authenticity wins when candidates trust voters with truth. The crowd chanted, Phoebe, Phoebe, but she gestured for quiet. This victory belongs to everyone who knocked doors, made calls, and believed that love makes communities stronger, not weaker. Her eyes found Clara's in the crowd. It especially belongs to the woman who taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing love despite fear. Clara felt tears threatening as Phoebe continued her speech, outlining priorities for her term and thanking supporters. When the formal remarks ended, Phoebe worked the room, shaking hands and accepting congratulations. Finally, she reached Clara near the back of the crowd. Without hesitation, she pulled Clara into her arms and kissed her thoroughly while cameras flashed and supporters cheered. Councilwoman Campbell has a nice ring, Clara murmured against her lips. I like the sound of that. As the celebration continued around them, Clara reflected on the wild journey from rideshare passengers to political partners. Every obstacle, Andrew Walker's ultimatum, the press attacks, the financial uncertainty, had only strengthened their bond. What's next? Clara asked. Changing the world, one arts program at a time. Think you can handle dating an elected official? I think I can handle anything with you. The victory party lasted until midnight, but Clara and Phoebe stepped outside for air as November wind swept across Mobile Bay. Campaign posters fluttered on nearby poles and the city skyline glittered with possibility. Thank you, Phoebe said, taking Clara's hand. For what? For refusing to let me hide. For choosing us over safety. For believing this was possible when I didn't. Clara squeezed her fingers. Thank you for being worth the risk. 6 months into Phoebe's term, the city buzzed with transformation. Arts funding had doubled, 3 new community programs launched monthly, and Clara's business thrived beyond her wildest projections. But tonight wasn't about politics or professional success. I stood outside Grind Coffee, the same place where our accidental meeting had changed everything, holding a small velvet box in my trembling hands. The autumn air carried hints of the same crisp energy that had surrounded us that first night we'd talked for hours. You're early, Phoebe said, appearing beside me with that smile that still made my heart skip. Nervous energy, sue me. We claimed our old table by the window, and I tried to act normal while my pulse hammered against my ribs. She looked radiant in a simple blue sweater that matched her eyes, completely unaware that our entire future balanced on this moment. How was the council meeting? Productive. We approved funding for the youth orchestra program. Her face glowed with satisfaction. 50 kids from low-income families will get instruments and training starting next month. That's incredible. Your event management skills help design the program structure. We make a good team. My opening. I took a shaky breath. About that partnership. What about it? Instead of answering, I slid the velvet box across the worn wooden table. Phoebe's eyes widened as she recognized what it meant. Clara, what are you doing? Something terrifying and necessary and long overdue. I opened the box, revealing a simple platinum band with a single diamond. I know we can't legally marry in Alabama yet, but I want the world to know you're mine. Her hand covered her mouth, tears already threatening. Clara, I've spent my whole life feeling like I didn't deserve beautiful things. You taught me that love isn't about deserving. It's about choosing. Every morning for the rest of my life I want to choose you. You're proposing in a coffee shop. I'm proposing in the place where we first really saw each other, where you looked past my struggles and I looked past your privilege, and we found something worth fighting for. She reached across the table, fingers trembling as she touched the ring. It's perfect. Is that a yes? Instead of answering, she leaned across the table and kissed me softly, ignoring the handful of other customers who turned to stare. When we separated, both of us were crying. Yes, you impossible woman. Yes to everything. I slipped the ring onto her finger, marveling at how right it looked there. 6 months ago, this moment would have seemed impossible. Too risky, too complicated, too much to hope for. When? She asked, admiring the diamond's sparkle in the coffee shop's warm light. Whenever Alabama gets its act together and legalizes marriage equality. Or whenever we decide to drive to a state with better laws. I'm flexible on timing. But not on commitment. Never on commitment. We stayed until closing time, planning an impossible future that somehow felt inevitable. The coffee shop where we'd discovered each other became the place where we promised forever. Walking to our cars, we'd driven separately from Phoebe's downtown office and my commercial space in Midtown. She caught my hand under the streetlight. I love you, Clara Rodriguez. I love you too, Councilwoman Campbell. Soon to be Councilwoman Campbell Rodriguez. Or Rodriguez Campbell. We can flip for it. Her laughter echoed off the empty street as October wind scattered leaves around our feet. Mobile's skyline stretched behind us, the city we'd both claimed in different ways, the place where two women from different worlds had built something beautiful and real. What are you thinking about? Phoebe asked, studying my expression. That morning when my car broke down. How furious I was about the rideshare expense, how intimidated I felt meeting you. I was intimidated too. Liar. I was. You had this intensity, this determination that made my careful life feel suddenly small. She squeezed my hand. You still do that to me. Good. I'd hate for you to get bored with small-town event planning. Never going to happen. We kissed again under the streetlight, engaged now, committed to futures neither of us could have imagined alone. 20 minutes in a shared back seat had led to this moment. Two women who'd risked everything for love and discovered that everything wasn't nearly enough to lose. As I drove home to my new apartment, bigger now in a better neighborhood but still distinctly mine, I caught sight of the diamond ring on Phoebe's finger in my rearview mirror. Tomorrow we'd call our families, plan celebrations, navigate the logistics of combining lives that had started in such different places. But tonight belonged to us, and the promise we'd made in a coffee shop, where love had learned to speak its name.